Here we go. Okay, tonight's patient placement, cervical release, February 2018. So, this conversation is tonight. I was just going to start out because I've been messing around with some patient placement, and it really gets involved. It brings in some old things that we've talked about, which to me are always so cool. Because kind of got some information before, maybe just a little out of sequence. And so we're going to talk about some patient placement, and it also involves the cervicals and the relationships there. So before we start, we always talk a little bit about what we do here, and I'm just going to spend a few minutes. We're not going to get into the biomechanics because we're going to shift, especially in Atlanta, from biomechanics into how do we actually make what we want to happen? Okay, so, the current biostructure of on this planet by, the smart dudes, wherever they are, they're not here in Atlanta. They're out and about, probably in Massachusetts with Dr. Smith. But Bio-Tensegrity is kind of the way that everybody's looking at the human body, and that is that the human body is kind of blown up from the inside. All right, and so that would be an expanding system. Okay, that is that tensegral, that opening, pushing balloon out system. But it also has bones inside it, so we're not just really a balloon. So we're this kind of tension compression syndrome system that has this giant balloon of 6 structures, the way we see it in QSM3, the head, the neck, the shoulders down to the pelvis, and weight, because weight is a relationship of how those sections are kind of put together, the configuration of it. That's what the weight expresses, is that configuration feels 12 pounds. So the way that whole thing is configured is the way that QSM3 looks at the Bio-Tensegrity model. So the structure out there in the world of Bio-Tensegrity and biostructure anatomists, physiologists, and so forth and so on, they're saying that we have this expanding system. And what I've begun to look at is those relationships of that expanding system, the head, the neck, and so forth downward, and how they react to trauma. Okay, so that system reacts to trauma with trouble. Okay, it has trouble because we have so much of this trauma. So the reality is that we're not really a tensegral system. We're a tensegral system that's in collapse. Okay, and based on whatever the configuration is, how it's zigzagging across, what's the first floor doing, tilting right, it's this next one's tilting left, so forth, the configuration, what the energetic value of that human body is, and how far it leans off center. Put all that together, all those injuries, and guess what we have? It's a picture of what we see on a daily basis of people in our office, okay? So, I was brought up to say that we can make a pencil, okay? And I don't think we can make pencils, okay, because it's been damaged, all right? So we can't make this thing square, okay? So what I notice is that what we get to do is, on our goal is how do we get this thing back to a more tensegral position, meaning grandma rule number 1 is grandma always falls down, and grandma rule number 2 is she always falls forward. Okay, so the purpose of what we're trying to do is look at this thing and try to restore that tensegral model, and instead of looking at it as a piece, okay, which a lot of people look at, and what I used to look at it that way, is I started looking at it as a whole. Okay, and those relationships, and how do we restore those tensegral balloons on top of each other? Okay, so it's not just a matter of a brick or a piece to a global issue. It's also a matter of a brick itself to a spring model. So from a part to a whole here, but also from a brick to a spring model, is we have to start looking at the biomechanics differently, and we have done that. Okay, we look at the relationships of structure and neurology and the energy and gravity, and we look at those normals. Okay, how did we find those normals? Well, you look at the facet angles, and you could see which way things are supposed to bend, and just go do it in your body, and you'll know what's normal and what's not normal. Okay, so we have to also look at in QSM3 as we started looking at, okay, if we have a different biomechanics model and we have a different spring model, and we're looking at the whole thing, is how do we go and what do we do differently to adjust it? Okay, so we had to shift. I had to shift from pushing something to actually releasing something, okay? Because if it's a spring, you don't push the spring, you release the spring, okay? And what we release is the potential energy of a compressed system. Push down a spring, push down a balloon, it's got some compression, it's got some potential energy to bounce out, okay? So if we could find the place to go ahead and release it, then we're in kind of like the driver's non-driver seat, okay? We're no longer responsible to fix it. We let innate do that, but at the same time, we go ahead and find that place to allow innate to make that happen, okay? So I'm going to ask that you could, whoever you are, to turn off your mic.
Call in user 2.
Call in user 2, okay. There, that's the end of that. All right, thank you. For some reason, my screen was locking me out of that space. That's why I was sitting there waiting for it to bounce back, and it did. Okay, so so we have now another piece is from kind of a way of looking at and understanding the human body from a piece to a whole and a whole system. It's not a brick system that's sitting on top of itself. It's a spring system. There are relationships that happen that we have to be able to look at this also as what we're trying to do. And that is we are trying to take whatever is short in the system and create length in it, okay? Because everything always falls down. It's that grandma concept. But the way that we have this conversation is always seems to be linear, okay? We've had conversations where, a year ago, 9 months ago, we were talking about, I was talking to people, well, this dysfunction is directly related to this dysfunction. And there's truth to that, okay? But there's a conversation that goes beyond that. This thing is related to that. And you have to be able to step out of that conversation and step into the conversation that this is just one system, okay, with 6 kind of hinges in it, okay, and 6 different access points, all right? And if you can get into the system of a balloon and access, what do you access? What do you access? Okay, we access everything. So through different types of placement, tonight I'm just going to touch on things. I'm not going to really tell you anything in specific. I'm going to give you some cool things to think about. This is what we're going to work on in Atlanta. Is how do we create a different placement that is specific, that's based on changing the leg, changing the chin, okay, changing the cervical connection. What is C7 doing that C5 can't do? What does C5 do that C1 can't do? And so forth and so on. And then tying that into the postural listing. Okay, so be able to look at a postural listing and to understand what you want to be able to do and how to create tension in it using some, levers that we have, because the human system does have some levers in it. It's called the skeletal system. And not only do we get to touch those levers and extend them so that we can release short tension, but we can use 2 very big weights at the end of the tension, okay, and the compression to do what? To increase tension or decrease tension. And what are those things? That's the pelvis and the legs and the head, okay? It's like a tug of war, is that we can create that tug of war, okay? So, these are things that have helped me dramatically be able to change weight and pelvises okay, because I started looking at this thing of getting help from the patient instead of me trying to kill myself and not being able to get somebody to full tension. Because if you can't get somebody to tension, okay, of what you want to release, you can't release it. Okay, you can poke around all day long. Okay, so if you can't get it to tension, then you cannot release it. Okay, so you need help from people. Okay, I have some people that I bend them in half. Okay, that I almost knock them off the table because they're so limber. I have to be able to take them to tension, okay, so that I can release that tension. Okay, so to get us going is we're just going to talk for a couple minutes. First, I'm going to tell you this is difficult to do. I finished this PowerPoint like 2 hours ago, and I was going to throw the whole thing in the trash like 3 hours ago. I started it a couple days ago, and this is a difficult thing for me to be able to teach on a PowerPoint because it's much easier to be able to put a listing up and say, okay, what's going on here, and let's walk through this, and this is what I'm going to do. But we're going to try to walk through it without showing you, okay? So just hang in there. I don't want to be I don't want this to be difficult, but there's a couple moving parts here that will get you spinning at the end of this thing that you'll just settle down with and you'll sit with it for a day or two and you'll figure it out, okay? Because you'll play with it in your office. So let's see how this goes here. There's some Tensegral physiology, and it's very simple. Okay, when you push in a balloon, what happens to everything in the balloon?
Goes towards where you are.
Thank
where
you.
You're pushing.
Yeah, amen. Okay, so when you push into that balloon, everything, three-dimensionally, just look at that. If that person was pushing their thumb into the balloon, all the tension from down here, from here to here to here, three-dimensionally. Okay, so if you were thinking that this was somebody's neck, what would that be doing? This here would be coming this way, and that would be coming that way, and this would be coming this way, and that would be coming that way. Okay, you get my point, and this would be coming this way. So you have to be able to start looking at people and see how you're supposed to set them up so you can actually create this three-dimensional tension, okay? So this is the first piece to realize is that you are not just on C5 and you are moving C5, because that never will exist, okay? There's no such thing as moving one thing. Energy into a balloon is energy everywhere, and energy into a building, which is a closed kinetic chain, just like that, you push against the car, is energy into it as well. So it doesn't matter if it's a spring system, okay, or a tension system, or a compression system like a building, okay? So it doesn't matter. Everything moves together, okay? They're just, things move differently. If I was to push my thumb into this building, what would I do? I would move it as wherever I was pushing it, okay, in the direction I was pushing it. So if I wanted to push a car right, I could push a car right, and it would go right. But I can release a spring in a right direction, and it could come back at me, okay, depending on the way that it's knotted up and twisted up. And I can release it left, and it can unwind a different way just as well. So every single human being has a different spring release, okay? And there's 6 pieces because if it would be as easy as this, as D.D. Palmer going into whatever he did, T1, T6, whatever they say he did, okay, going in there, and it would just release everything. Well, the thing is, the human body is not just one balloon, okay? It's 6 balloons. It's sitting on top of itself, okay? So those balloons get to interact in between each other so that energy is not going into them the same way as one balloon, okay? And then we have a skeletal system that's inside as well. All right, so we're not just a balloon system, okay? So we got to be able to integrate this skeletal tensegral system to understand how, when we put energy into it, how do we optimize it so that we can release everything as fast as possible and as optimally. Okay, so any questions on that? Okay. All right. So that's some tensegral kind of physiology. Let's talk about some bio-tensegral anatomy, okay? And this is the way I see things, okay? I see this as one tree, and I see it as two trees, okay? So the human body has two trees. It has this big tree, okay, and it's the pelvis. The top of the pelvis is earth. It's the top of earth. These are the muscles that go in, okay? All these muscles are the roots, okay? And this is where the origin of everything is, okay? And then what happens is the origin of these things climb up. They touch, they grab other things. We could see the fascia in the middle here. They grab other things. They move over here so we can move our shoulders. You get security here, more stability here from the shoulder over here, okay? But basically, if we didn't have any arms, we would basically have a muscle system. Oh, hold on. What happened there? Uh-oh. Hold on, where we go? Sorry. So we would basically have a muscle system, okay, that would originate here and end here, insert here. And this is the region, right, from here to here, okay? This is tree number one that goes from all the way from here to the top, okay? And these roots all the way down here are the guys that hold everything, okay? And then there's a secondary tree, and this is the second Earth, okay? This is planet Earth for what? The tree number two, which is the neck and the head. So the first tree holds everything. I know you're going, what is he talking about here? And the second tree is this tree right here. And this is important because it makes it very simple to see the origins and the insertions for everything, okay? So there are two primary origins, okay? There is this origin here that spans here, and it goes up to the shoulders. And you can actually see that innate intelligence tells you where everything attaches. It says it attaches here. You can see the fascia. Okay, that's the attachment. It's not attaching with muscle. It's attaching with a tendon. So there's the fascia stuff, okay? And here is the tendinous stuff up here, right there at C7. And then we look at that and we see a larger bone, okay, which is at C7 as well. So this becomes a primary insertion, all right? So not only is this an origin, but this is an insertion. Not only is this an origin then for the neck, okay, but it's an insertion. So C7, okay, is a really big responsive place to activate things from the pelvis upward, okay, because it has a dual function. It's an insertion for the lower part from here down, and it's an origin from here up to the skull. All right? So the other piece is where is the second insertion? And there it is up here. You could just look at the fascia and look at it like the aponeurosis here and the tendinous junk that's in there. I mean, that's all the attachment. So we've got an insertion here and an insertion there. And then what we have is a secondary attachment right in the middle. And where is that? Right at C5. Okay? And that is the arch of the human neck. So we have an origin, an insertion here, and an origin. We have an insertion here, and it comes from C1, but it goes all the way around into the neck, into the back of the skull. And then we have a secondary stabilizer here, okay? And what we're looking at here, and what I'm showing you here, is that we touch 20-something points on the cervicals, and each one are specific for what you want to release. So if you look at a posture listing, and you set up a patient in a specific way so it creates tension in those short positions, then you understand where the attachments are and the insertions are, okay, so that you can release things as well as possible, and then how to go ahead in the sequence to release them, then guess what? Now you're freaking knocking homers all day long, okay? And that's what I'll show you, okay? And that is really what I'm going to be focused on in Atlanta. This is going to shift from basically, I think the first 4 or 5 hours is biomechanics, and then after that is I have to sit down and figure out a way to show you guys how to do this, okay? And you have to be able to feel it at the same time, okay? So this is part of that. This is like the prep for that. hold on one second. Let me get. Okay, so this is a part of that kind of transitions us from our biomechanics understanding into our connection, our adjustment. This is the bridge conversation. That's what this is about, is the placement. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So, we've talked about for a long time now that, I've been looking at innate intelligence. I told you all of a sudden it just dawned on me to just start looking at where innate does things, and then I'll get my answers, and that's why I look at the fascia and the pelvis, and you look at the, all those tendinous attachments, where the origins and insertions are. You see where the bigger players are. You look at the cervical hub, and you see the size of the bones. What's that, Australian snowboarder that broke his neck today? Where'd he break it? C5, right?
Yes, it was C5.
Yeah, C5, right? Yeah, because that is the keystone. It is the secondary attachment that right here, okay, C5, and that's why it wears down the most because it is the bridge between the skull and the neck and the lower extremity. It's the secondary attachment point. Okay, so tonight, to be able to understand how to be the best adjuster is to understand the biomechanics, understand the placement, and then understand the application. Okay, so you have to be able to understand an attention system that it doesn't operate like a push system. I'm going to shut somebody up there. Okay, I got it. Okay, very good. So it's not like a push system, okay? I'm not just pushing C5. When I push into C5, C5 is basically the center. We used to talk about this a lot, and there's 100% truth to it. And I use this place a lot because what it does is C5 gives you equal access to both sides. Because when I push in here, my tension, like that balloon, is coming here. And when I actually start creating dynamic motion and I start going in deeply into that area, into the facet orientation, so there's normal range of motion, so I don't hurt anybody, is you can actually see the head comes off the table this way. It creates a wedge right down like this and up like that. And you can see it buckles right through there, right when you get in at that spinous is in the back. Okay, so what is that telling me? That tells me that tension comes from this way up, and then from this way down, and then from here it's coming around. Okay, so why is that important? Okay, why is it important, and why did this happen that I actually started thinking about this again? Because it is tough sometimes, as Chad knows, to move weight. Okay, it's tough to move weight. Every once in a while, I just get stuck and I can't move the weight the way that I want. So I said, okay, I'm missing something. So I started looking at a way to change the pelvis. Okay, I have a couple patients that have some really big dips. Actually, let me change that conversation. It wasn't the weight. I have a couple patients that have very low hips, and I was getting them up towards center, but that hip would never straighten out, and I was wondering what I can do to create tension to actually pull that hip up, okay? Or if it was on the other side, pull it up and around. So if I had a low hip on this side, how do I get that hip to come around? If I have a low hip on this side, what do I do? Okay, so that's where this conversation starts from, okay? And of course that deals with weight. Okay, so C5 is a bridge. So here's a couple things that you can kind of digest a little bit. Is this, okay? And this is my disclaimer, okay, before I even start, okay? When you touch one thing, you touch everything, okay? Why can't we access everything from one place? Because we got these hinges in between, and you cannot create tension in a right-left zigzag multi-place. I don't know how to do that yet, okay? I mean, we'd have to be able to twist somebody and spiral them around and put them on this special table and unwind it, that kind of thing, blah, 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 blah. We don't get to do that. So we still work on a linear table a little bit. So there is some linear direction here. So there are some relationships. So C5, C7 to C5, okay, down in this area, C7 to C5, okay, I work a lot of the structures on that same side. And when I'm saying the structures is when I come down into C7 to C5 and I got right side up, I am working that shoulder and I'm working all the way down into that pelvis, okay? If I'm right at C5, I'm working this side equally, okay, as well as the opposite side. When I go above C5, I'm putting more pressure in to bring forces around, up and around. Fair enough? So that's where this C5 conversation comes in here. I can go backwards. There we go. So when I get up into this area here, it creates more energy into this area here. And when I create more energy down here, I create more lift up here to this side. Okay? Questions? Does anybody understand what I'm talking about? I take
Yes.
that as it. Okay. Are you the only one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good enough. Okay. So, and there's a rhythm to this. I'm just trying to give you some look at. I'm going to walk you through this so that you have a 1, 2, 3 thing to do. Okay. That's not going to happen tonight. Okay. That'll happen another night. Okay. Maybe whether it's next month or in Atlanta. Okay. But I got to be able to show you this. What I'm trying to do is introduce these concepts to people so that we can get further on with the next conversation. Okay. Because this is a multiple conversation, because this really is the bridge to all you have to do after that is connect. Okay, all you got to do is get your piezoform on that tension and drive through it. Okay, so if you can understand what's happening in these areas, so I'm going to just show you some of these points that I work in, so you could just say when you're working down C7 to C5. Man, I am pulling a lot of that side of the structures, that weight, that shoulder, that fixed point, that spine, okay, up. When I get above on the other side, okay, I'm working a lot of the stuff on the other side, okay, and that's when that next, you can see that head start bending upward, all right. Don't start bending heads just upward, okay. There's a conversation to this as well, okay. If you look over at the inferior nuchal point, okay, which sits right on the corner between the mastoid, which is up in here, okay, and the EOP. It's basically on the corner side of the head. You'll feel it at that point, okay? That is one of my favorite places to play, okay, after C7 and C5, okay, because it gives you access to both sides of the head and neck. It is a big, major attachment for the head and the neck. This is a huge insertion for the head and the neck. All right? So you can get in here and play I to S, straight down into it. You can release straight down into it, and the head will roll upward, and you'll be able to release tension in the neck on the other side, tension in the neck on this side as you go I to S. Okay? C2 is a big drill point. All right? C1 to me clears out. I don't feel like I clear bony structures out. I feel like I clear out like cranial, like soft tissue structures, like dural structures. Okay? So when you touch C1, I don't feel like I'm changing structures in the neck as much as I do up into the cranium and brainstem area. Okay? And then C0, okay, which is all around the occiput, okay? You're working with, everything in the head and some in the neck. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to look at a postural listing. I'm going to set a patient up. I'm then going to put them in a certain position in their leg and their head. We're going to get into that in just a moment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through a rhythm here to start releasing tension on this side that allows me to move. And what we're going to learn in Atlanta is how to move the patient so that I can take them to releasing things on this side, to things on the opposite side, and then from a static release to a dynamic release, okay, which I'll talk about in the end. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what's going on here. Okay, so the next piece of this is patient placement itself. Again, the whole purpose of this conversation is how do I take a postural listing to set the patient up in the proper place, and then how do I know how to access it, okay, at the specific place. And all those three things go together, all right? So what I want to do is I want to lay somebody down looking at that postural listing, and I want to be able to understand what I have to do to it. And the way to change tension between the pelvis and the shoulders, okay, is by changing the legs. Bending the leg this way, bending the leg that way, okay? So I started doing that again. I had both legs bent backward for extension, and I was getting some great results with the sagittal curve, but I was not getting that hip out, okay, the way that I wanted to. So I have, like I said, I had some patients that I was getting success with them. The numbers were reducing, the rotation was reducing, but that hip was not releasing the way that I wanted it. And I said, man, I want to just try it. How do I get just to that hip? So that's where this came from, okay? So I've told you, how do I access the hip? What area do I access the hip? In the cervicals, C7 to C5. Fair enough? On both sides, you will access it there, okay? So the next piece is, how do I create some tension down there so that I actually release the hip, okay? So I started playing around with the legs, and we'll get that in just a moment. The other thing that I do in patient placement, besides the leg placement, is I want to access the anterior and posterior planes. And I do that by bringing the chin down and the chin up. And that's easy to feel because if you bring the chin down, you'll feel that the posterior is more activated, more tense. And again, the idea is to create tension into long tension, okay? So we access the anterior and the posterior by chin placement, okay? And I'll start, and we'll talk about this in Atlanta, is in a specific place. Like I start with the chin down. Okay, and then I start working the TPs from C7 to C1, and then I go into other areas, okay? But before I do that, I have to understand what I have in the postural listing and what I need to do to that pelvis, okay? And there's a caveat to the end, okay? So one thing that I know is that when I have a leg extended, okay, like Allie's top leg is extended, okay, I am creating tension that pulls towards that leg. Okay, and when I flex the leg, like the bottom leg, I relax it, okay? So what happens is, like a pulley, I create tension from the relaxed leg around to the straighter leg. Fair enough? You already know where I'm going then. Okay, so what happens is, I set somebody up on a table based on their postural listing of their setup and then their release, okay? I put them on a temporal support, okay? And the reason we put them on a temporal support is because if you're going to stretch tension, you got to be able to stretch. So what's the best place to stretch the body? The cervicals, man. There's the most range of motion. That's why you can't do it anywhere else in the body. The pelvis is not the right place to do it. The sacrum isn't the right place. The neck is. It's the three-dimensional hub that has the most amount of flexibility. No question. End of story. It's anatomy. The compensator, it has to. The bottom is stabilizing. The top is flexible. So that's why the miracles happen up top, because we get the farthest reach through there. Okay? Small area of a tight place right here to a big pelvis. So it just splatters out the energy that we put in from here. It just shoots out like, shooting up a funnel rather than down a funnel. Sprays out. Okay, so leg extension, yes?
The top picture shows everything going up with the leg, with
Right.
the top leg
Right.
extended?
Right.
Is that? I mean, I understand that the bottom one would come up, but the top one actually.
Yeah, because the energy is coming. The energy is what do I have here?
The bottom one, you have it going different directions. The
Hold
top,
on.
you have
Yeah, I
it-
see that. I got it. I understand. I got to figure out why I had that way. I should have had this. This one should be that way there, Brad, like that, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah, sorry
Yes.
about that. You're the man.
Thank you.
You'll get that in the edit for the Atlanta class. How's that? Can you fix that, please, for me?
Yes, deal.
Excellent. Okay, we'll make this slide can you guys see that the way, do you see that marker on there? The yellow marker? The yellow arrow?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if I was hoping it was showing up. Good. Okay, so that's what should happen. So on this one, the bottom leg is relaxed. So the force travels up, okay, and it pulls it around. So the force always travels to the straight leg. Okay, it's like it's pulling the hip up. You got me?
Russell,
You
isn't
see
the,
the way
isn't the bottom leg relaxed?
the bottom leg is relaxed.
Okay. It's straight is relaxed?
No, the bottom leg is relaxed. Bottom.
But it's straight.
No, it's straight in the bottom. It's straight in this one, Andy. The bottom leg is straight in this one. This one, the top leg is straight.
Okay, look, they both look the same to me. Okay.
Okay.
Pants.
All right. Well, we'll deal with that, and I'll change those slides out. I just threw this together. I just took this picture last night in the house so I could do this.
Yeah. Because of the same
Okay.
picture, kind of. Okay.
They're not the same picture. In this one, the bottom leg is relaxed. In this one, the top leg is relaxed.
Okay.
Okay? It's just too small for you to see, maybe.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So the force. So this is important because you're able to start changing that hip. I know I'm able to change that hip much easier and getting it balanced. I have a lady that I've just been doing this in the past couple of weeks on, and she's had she had 3 fractures in her pelvis from a fall off a bicycle, and her pelvis has always been cockeyed, and she's leaving for France tomorrow, and for the past 2 visits, her pelvis has been balanced. So it has put some change in some of that stress of me getting down lower and better activation down there. Okay, so you'll try it out. Okay, so the other piece is how do we get to rotation? Okay, so to get down to that pelvis and get down to that shoulder and that fixed spine, you can change that leg to be able to change some of the tension in that area. Okay, now one of the things that I don't do is I'm not changing legs through this whole thing. I go on one side, I use one leg setup, and if I flip it over, I use another leg setup. So I'm not changing legs all over the place, okay? At the end of this whole thing, I go after the sagittal, which is what I used to do, and I extend the legs. But I'll show you that in just a moment. So we have a place where we look at a postural listing, and I lay the person down, and then I look at how I want to be able to create some tension down in their legs. It's very simple, okay? The next piece that I do is I want to be able to start and I want to activate the rotations. I always start with the chin inflection, okay? Because what it does is it fans the TPs. The TPs is what I go after first, always, okay? Because the transverses are attachments for the frontal plane for weight. People don't collapse first. They go off center first, okay? The spinuses deal with the sagittal plane and the fall forward, okay? And the rotation. And the lamina are more rotation. So you got the TPs on the outside, which are the frontal plane. You got the lamina, which are kind of in the middle and deal with the rotation and the transverse crosses and the frontal plane. And then you have the spinuses that deal with the sagittal plane and the transverse plane, okay? And that's not black and white because remember I said that everything's connected to everything. But so I work from transverse processes to the laminas to the spinous processes because that's the way people break down. I tell my patients I have to get them on center before I can get to the sagittal curve, okay? Because it's from center that the sagittal curve can be restored. You can't jaywalk from the frontal plane from 20 pounds to the right to the sagittal curve. Until you get that person up on vertical, you can't get their shoulders to come back. They won't do it. They'll do it for a minute, but they won't do it for stability, okay? So you have to be able to work the rotation, and I work the posterior first because what it does is it fans up my TPs, and I can get really nice attachment, activation there. Okay. So when you put the chin down, you feel it. It activates the posterior. When you bring the chin up, it activates the anterior. Okay. All right. So the next piece after that, and what I look at, is and what I'm looking at now, and this is what we'll really focus on in Atlanta, is once we can look at a postural listing, and we can go ahead and set up somebody's leg, and we set up where we tuck their chin, and we set them up with a temporal support. What is the sequence of events that we go through? And the first thing that I start doing is, like I said, I work with the TPs, and then I go to the lamina, I go up C7 and go all the way around, and I keep going basically in a circle all the way around until I clear everything, moving around, moving around, moving around. I don't bounce around all over the place, but I'm always moving, and I pretty much move in a circle from C7 TPs around the skull, down the SPs, and around all the way up, okay? Once you can get everything released that you feel that is tight, you can actually start working on going into the body and changing the position of the chin from posterior to anterior. Remember, the more anterior, the more you bring the chin up. Just bring your chin down and start bringing your chin up. You'll see as you bring your chin up, you have a lot more flexibility, of course. Bringing your chin down locks you up. Okay, so when you have the chin down, you are not working deep into the body, and you're not looking to change the motion of the body. Okay, so what we do is we work the transverse processes first and some of the lamina, and then what I start doing is I start bringing the chin up so that I can actually start creating the dynamics of the body, and then I start working into the body. So my patients feel that. So they feel me working pieces and pieces. I tell them I'm working through it's like chipping away marble, like I said in a post the other day. But it's actually like I clear out all the moguls, and then what I go into is how do I create motion, okay? And if you can create motion three-dimensionally in the neck, it means that everything else in the body is clear, okay? So if you're able to break the resistance and release all the short tension, what you actually start doing is you actually start increasing the motion of the human body, okay? And people stand up and they are, like their head got popped off, okay? So this is what we're focusing on, okay? So that's my process here. There is the first thing that I want to clear out is I want to be able to clear out this static lock against gravity. Then what I want to be able to do is I want to start being able to start putting some motion. And I don't know who plays in this area, but when you start bringing the head back and you start relaxing this area in here, and you have the right rhythm, guess what happens? You start releasing the tension and you start restoring the curve. First, what you have to do is you have to restore that. You have to break down all the musculature of all those postural muscles of that misalignment standing up against gravity. That's a lot of work, guys. Think how much effort it takes for the human body to stand up in a misaligned position against gravity. Well, if the assertions are spanning from here to here, that is what we have to be able to overcome. So if we can get the person in a relaxed position, but put them in tension, and then we can go to the places, okay, that have the specific releases or the specific insertions, and we can set them up in a place that actually creates tension in those places. All we start doing is start bending these spinuses and these TPs, okay? And before you know it, you start bringing the head back, and you start releasing into it, and you start restoring 3D motion. And there is a sequence to that, okay? And it starts with understanding what that postural listing means in a biomechanics way. It starts understanding it in a stress way. It starts understanding it in how it's dysfunctioning, what's going on in the relationships. And the next piece is how do you lay this thing down so that you can activate that postural listings short tension, and then go ahead, set the pelvis up, set the chin up, and then go through a sequence of events that actually start releasing this, okay? So I want to show you this for just a moment. Let's see if this is correct. Yes, it is. Okay, good. So Andy, in this picture, this is the top leg is bent, okay? All right, so in this picture, one of the things that I noticed is, there's patterns for everything. So it's not just random, because I was going, okay, should I stretch this leg? Should I stretch that leg? So forth and so on. I didn't know what I should stretch, and should it be the hip and this and that? And I started doing this for a little bit, and I saw that when, let me turn off somebody's microphone here. Tom, I got him. Okay, Tom, you're busted. Okay, so in structural dysfunctions, this is the piece that I'm going to give you. You got 2 slides left here. In the structural dysfunction misalignments, that's these kind of misalignments. Who would like to tell me, what is my main goal in this misalignment? Anybody understand me?
Integrate the structure.
Right. So, okay, yeah, so you can see the weight is not integrated here, right? Okay. In this one, the spine is not integrated with the structure. These are 3 structures, the 3 structural components. In here, the pelvis is not integrated. This should be an RRLLL. This should be an RRLLL. This should be RRLLL. So in each one of these examples, the structural component is dysfunctioning. Okay. So if this was to set up as an RRLLL, all of these are, what side would I start on? It would be a right setup. I would release the left. And you guys already had this awareness. If I'm setting this up, I'm releasing the left. It's always so perfect that I get to do that when there's a structure that's not working. Because what is my only goal here in this misalignment? To be able to integrate that structure, right, Andy Smith?
Yep.
Okay. So the only thing I care about this is getting that structure to release. So if I have, in this one, the left side up, and I want to be able to release it, I relax the top leg, I straighten the bottom one, and I let her fly, man. And you will start pulling that whole thing around. This will pop, that'll pop, and that will pop 10 times faster tomorrow.
Wicked cool.
Okay? Fair enough? Okay, now I want to show you another one. Okay. So in this one, I am going to put this arrow right here so that you're not confused. Okay? How's that? Is that right? Yeah, that's right. That's this one, the bottom leg is bent. Okay, so this is a misalignment. This is the cookbook way to look at this, okay? When I have a structural dysfunction, I'm going to have the bottom leg straight. Right here. When I have a structural dysfunction, I don't care if I have a neurological dysfunction too. If I have a structural dysfunction, this is job 1, okay? Because you're going to set this up as right, left, okay? Which means some structure is wrong, okay? Even if you decided to set this up as left, right, you'd still be setting up, you'd set up on the opposite side, but you would still have the bottom leg straight. Fair enough? Because you're trying to release a structural dysfunction. In these misalignments here, there is no structural dysfunction. These right here. No structural dysfunction, it's balanced. No structural dysfunction, just the head tilt. No structural dysfunction, but a neck dysfunction. No structural dysfunction, but a shoulder dysfunction. Fair enough? Any question? when you have this, what is the goal of this type of misalignment?
To get the function over the structure.
Okay, so if that was true, getting the function over the structure, then I would want this type of placement possibly. So let me answer that question. I want you to think about this. What does the leg stretch? I told you before. I said it stretches from the shoulder to the pelvis. Okay? Fair?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't affect the structure. I mean, the function. It's not affecting this. Okay, what's going to affect this is my hand, okay? And my placement, and my, where I'm going to get the cervicals. So the leg is not something that affects the neck and head. So in this misalignment, what I want to try to do is I still want to release the structure. Which way would I want the structure to go in here? All of these, I want them to go right to left, don't I? Wouldn't I like them to go to 0?
Yes.
I told you guys are gonna have a little pain tonight. It's just slightly painful. Okay, but when you sort this out, you're gonna see this. Okay, I just want to say this one more time because we're gonna be done in 5 minutes. Okay, is in this one right here, there's only one goal: to get the structure integrated. In this one, the goal is to get the neurology integrated and also bring the structures closer to center. That's not the goal of this one. This one is not to get these structures closer to center. You can't have both. You can't have move this left to right and move that right to left. You can't have that. That's structure. You can't move the hip right and left at the same time. It's a ridiculous concept. In these only, you want to integrate structure. In this one, the function, the structure is already integrated. So the only thing I have to do is bring this towards more 0 and get this handled, okay? I can get the function handled from up here. It doesn't involve the leg. So if I have a right weight, okay, or a right structure, I want my forces to go right to left. So which way what do? I straighten the left leg. I want my force, it's like the left leg will pull to the right. Remember, it's pull tension. The straight leg pulls it. So straighten the left leg, it pulls the weight from the right. Straighten this one is straightening the right leg, the left leg, okay, because it pulls it over as well. Okay? Any questions? You'll get to this. Okay, but this will help you with your hip, and it'll help you with your weight. Any questions? Too many questions?
Let's start doing it.
Okay, so this will be helpful for you. Okay, and I started this tonight saying this was going to be a higher discussion. It's a transition discussion of taking the biomechanics, and the postural listing and the setup and which side up to saying, okay, I have 2 types of misalignments. What's my goals here? And basically, I showed you any type of misalignment possible. If you have a structural misalignment, you have the bottom leg straight, okay? If you don't have a structural misalignment, you'll have the top leg straight. And you'll understand why, because you want to be able to, in this one, move the structure towards center. In the other one, I want to integrate structures, okay? We're going to use a temporal headpiece so that we can have a lot of motion in the neck and it's loose, okay? The more you create the bigger span that you have in the neck, the more relaxed it is, okay? It's like the longer the piece of rope, the more motion you have in it, all right? And then we're going to tip the chin down or tip it up, and then we're going to start going through a sequence that I'll teach you from the transverse processes in the lamina so that you can actually go completely through the resistance and down and restore three-dimensional motion into a human body. You should be able to, you can do it on everybody, okay? That doesn't mean you could take everybody to zero, but I tell people, I say, listen, I've cleared up all the spasms you felt at, and when you get through the motion, and they can feel it because I'm going through it. I said, you feel that? That's stuck there. I said, it's stuck everywhere from this place. I can't go through that today. Or if I feel like I can go through it, I said, just hang on and relax, okay? But what happens is I used to adjust people in a static position. Stay still, okay? And I'm going to put a force in there at the transverse process of C1. Now what I do is I get myself connected and chip through it, okay, in that sequence of events, posterior with whatever leg, and I go C7 up and around, and I start just chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, okay, and I always work from bottom up. And then before you start knowing, you get some motion, you start feeling that stuff relax a little bit. So once you start feeling things relax, you start bringing the chin up, and I go into more of a neutral position from chin down, okay? And then I start working the lamina and working through that and creating motion. And the lamina, okay, allow me to get into places, into the rotations, and also to the frontal plane. Just look the way it's oriented. It's kind of like on the 45. And before you start know it, because you're on the 45, see at the TPs you can't go straight down in it, okay? People don't have any motion side to side. You know, when you're on somebody at the side of their neck, they don't like when you push straight down, all right? But if you bring the chin up just a little bit to a neutral position and start working at the lamina, now you start creating some moderate motion in there. And you start chipping away, C7 all the way up, and you get up into that inferior nuchal attachment, because that's the upper attachment from the lamina. All right, and then you start bringing the head back a little bit, and you start going down into the spinuses and coming up and around the lamina, like in a big circle. And before you know it, their chin's all the way up, they're hanging off the table, and you're freaking got your knee against the thing, and you just opened them up to full range of motion. And they stand up, and they just go, I feel good. Okay? I had a 10-year-old boy in my office yesterday as a new patient, has 12 to 13 seizures a day. Past year, some bully beat him up in school and was smashing his head against the ground in Jim's class. And he's been to a bunch of people, and a chiropractor sent him to me. And I adjusted him yesterday, and we'll see what happens. But I said to him, I said, how do you feel? And he just started like smiling, and he's like a really like dry kid. And he says to me, I feel good. You know, people notice this right away if you can get to that end range of motion. And it started with that C2. Okay? And that's really, really an important place to be able to get people to, because we don't make people that are buildings. People are made to move. And if we can expand that sphere of that motion, you know, I wrote a post the other day. I tell my patients, I said, we live in such a small sphere of motion. We text, we work with computers, we drive, we eat. Everything's tight. I'm doing it right now. Okay? I'm in front of a computer. I'm in a small sphere. Okay? We're made to be completely out. And we can go through that. Okay? So, and chiropractic does that all the time. Okay? But we could do it three-dimensionally and globally. Okay? Instead of segmentally. Okay? Because you cannot get the same impact that you do at T5 that you do in 20-something cervical points. Okay? Because everything inserts up into that area, and that's where your full range of motion is. You cannot have more range of motion, so it's an optimal place. And that's why the miracles happen there. Okay? And that's why there's so many techniques that are up there. All right? So we're just seeing all those spots there now. You guys feel them. And the whole idea is to get on those anchors, get your pisiform against it, and to just overcome the resistance. And there's an art to that. All right? And it's a little complicated. It's not easy. It's work. Okay? But I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because I have no stress when I adjust people, zero. No, man, I just lay up and I freaking just go wild. You know, and sometimes you can't get stuff, but you know, and I tell patients every day that. Okay? So I hope to see you in Atlanta. Hopefully it'll be a good class. And if you have some people that you can interest to come as well, registration's open. And just last call, any questions?
I had one more.
Yes.
On that slide you have up now, non-structured dysfunctions. Straight leg. You're gonna love this. Are we going S to I on the to get the shift from right to center?
Yeah. So
head
Brad,
as a lever?
that is a fair question. Okay. And I just kind of orient my body of where I feel that I can set up resistance, because I turn myself S to I and I to S. Okay, because of that mentality. What Brad's asking is, if you're trying to get the forces to come from below up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what this is doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Is you have a left side up, but you have all right structures. So you want the structures to go right to left. So you want them to come up to you. Okay. So you stretch the top leg and bend the bottom one. And then if you want to go S to I in this area, the answer is definitely, especially at C5, Brad. Okay, you can definitely go in there. But it's not a matter of just going S to I. Is you go S to I, and is there something there? But I'll tell you the better place to do that, Brad, is actually at the inferior nuchal point. As I just get up at the top of the table and I just start dropping in, and that head bends up like that, nice and easy. Right. C5 and that inferior nuchal point will overcome that resistance. The cool thing about these is you can get them. These are the guys that you usually get, and they're one adjustment. They're one side. Okay? These guys are not usually one-sided, because a lot of times when you knock this thing and you take this, left side up, it can increase this side of the structure. And, a lot of times they bounce up the center, but some of the times they pop up and they pop out. Okay, you got to turn them over. Okay, that's not the case with these. Okay, because with these, you're actually getting the structure to move towards you, and you're getting the function to move away from you, which is one of the
really helpful.
Yeah. So, I just noticed that because I was trying to figure out like a standard to just kind of make this, see some patterns. I mean, I always try to see everything should have a pattern if it's going to work. So I saw this pattern for now, and it works nicely. I'll tell you what, I've had some good low pelvis. The whole start of this was that low pelvis. Okay, and you'll see how it works for you. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. That's it, man. I did good tonight, man. I did an hour. I know that's, when we do something different and there's a lot of moving parts, I know that's difficult on the first go. Okay. I'm sorry about the errors on my slides, but you know the way I go, man. I can't write any post without a typo. I'm just like a Riri. It's just what it is, So, yeah.
Sorry,
yes.
Go ahead.
That's it, man.
Okay. I had a question. So
yeah.
Just the bottom tree, bottom leg is straight. Is that correct?
In this picture?
No, not this picture. For the structure.
So if are you talking about these kind of things?
Yeah, when you're trying to integrate.
Bottom leg is always straight. If you have a structural dysfunction, the bottom leg is straight.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's kind of odd for people too, because they're, it's like they don't have the same stability as when the bottom leg is straight. But it seems to work pretty good. I ask people to, and you got to have people relax. They can't be locked up. You can't say just hold yourself on the table, because you can't get depth if somebody's locking themselves. All I keep saying to people all day long, relax, 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 as I slowly just work down, it's like, working a pump, and you just keep going in and in and in. It's just not one spot that you pump it from. You pump it, you're taking this stiff board to a three-dimensional moving motion is what I do. And the table placement and the cervical insertions are the places that make those tension lines release. Okay? All righty. Anything else? Hey, thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Okay? And Remember Atlanta. Remember, I try to put up Facebook posts every day. I do appreciate everybody else putting stuff up. And I will speak to you all soon. Okay? Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Have a good